Good morning. How are you? Oh, for
Well, welcome to this beautiful, if not rainy,
September Sunday morning. Yay, rain! I honor the love in you. I see love shining through. When I say namaste to you, my friend, I honor the love in you. Namaste, 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 namaste. When I say namaste to you, my friend, I honor the love in you. I honor the Christ in you. I see Christ shining through. When I say namaste to you, my friend, I honor the Christ in you. Namaste, 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 namaste. When I say namaste to you, my friend, I honor the Christ in you. Namaste. So let us pray. Let us take a breath and turn within and know that in this very moment where we are, God is. And we allow ourselves to be enfolded, to feel that we are enfolded by the infinite love and light that is God. We feel that love moving in and through us, filling our hearts and extending to everyone around us. We see this love as a source of comfort and strength to everyone who is facing a challenge. And we are grateful. We are grateful for this love of God that is ever present. We say thank you. Thank you, God. Amen.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, I can hear. Thank you for joining us this Sunday. Linda stole my thunder. I had a rain joke. Thank you, Linda. But welcome to each and every one of you this beautiful Sunday. And if you're joining us from home, from near or far away, from the comfort of your bedroom or living room, we welcome you as well. And if you're joining us from out of state, you're going to see a lot of happy faces in this church today because there's water falling from the sky, and we're going to look as happy as people in Portland, Oregon do when the sun comes out. So we're very grateful for that. As we like to kick off each and every Sunday, our children come up and remind us about why we're here. So I'm going to invite, I'm not even going to call them by name. Children, come up so we can light the Christ candle and we can honor you in your presence. And I think we got a little surprise coming to us, to everybody in the congregation. And so this is perfect that it's raining outside because, go ahead and light that. Why we're lighting this Christ candle is for you to remind each and every one of us that even in darkness, perceived darkness, oh my goodness, we blew both of them out. We blew the Christ candle out. And so, just like it is in our teaching, sometimes you can believe that the light has been blown out, but it can easily be lit again. And that's why you're here to remind us. Even though it's cloudy out, we know the sun's behind those clouds, and that's light. Come on up forward here. And you, with your dancing and your beautiful outfits, are a reminder to us. I like how they come in. It's this perpetual motion. It's like this is how we should all be, right? Be as little children. So now we're going to do a special blessing for our children. Did this great task for us this morning. So let's give these three wonders their own special blessing. You are beautiful children of God, perfect in every way. You are loved unconditionally just the way you are. And let's give ourselves that same blessing. I am a beautiful child of God, perfect in every way. I am loved unconditionally just the way I am. And now I think we have a special treat, do we not? Ladies. Ladies. So. Are you going to go sing with Grandma? Are they singing with you? Oh, okay.
Sing out, okay? I'm a beautiful child of God, a wondrous spirit of love and peace. My light will shine forever. I'm a beautiful child of God. Tell someone in the room, you're a beautiful child of God, a wondrous spirit of love and peace. Your light will shine forever. You're a beautiful child. Now make this a prayer. Send it out to the world. We are beautiful children of God. We are wondrous spirits of love and peace. Our light will shine forever. We are beautiful children of God. We are beautiful children of God.
And thank you. Have a wonderful morning at your classes. Yay! See, I thought they were going to be at the microphone with you singing.
Well, maybe next time.
Maybe, was there a miscommunication like with they looked a little shell-shocked up here, but they did a great job nonetheless. It's not easy standing up here with all these eyes on you. So welcome, everybody. We'd like to let you know that after the service, we meet together over in this big hall across the way where there'll be some light refreshments and good fellowship, so please join us there. And also, we have chaplains here each and every Sunday to pray with you. And this morning, we have a soul chaplain named Warren Spaeth. Singular in number, but very large in capability. So if you have a celebration you'd like to share, or there's something weighing heavy on your heart you'd like to share in strict confidence, please seek out Warren after the service. And now Reverend Dalia would like to come up and make an announcement.
So yesterday we had a most amazing autumn tea, what used to be our spring tea. And I want to say thank you. I want to say a huge thank you for everyone who contributed to that event. And I see that half of our people that are home resting after that event very appropriately. Normally, when I come up here to say thank you, I make a list of everyone who contributed and I name people. And I worked on that list with a couple different people. And what I came up with is we had 1,000 people contributing, and we had 60 tickets sold, so probably about 60 people attending. But we had people involved in the planning. Our Janet Owen led the planning team, but I tried to nail down who was involved in the planning, and the numbers kept growing and growing. And we had people who were serving, the men who were serving tables, and I swear we should have had tip jars because we could have made hundreds of dollars at each table. They did such a great job. And then there were people in the kitchen setting up the food and getting everything organized. And then there are the people who created those wonderful chocolate and lemon cookies and scones. And then there were the people who created a boutique and the crafters who crafted and made things that were sold at the boutique. And then there was a jewelry table and the people who organized the jewelry table. There were probably 1,000 pieces of jewelry. And the people who manned the tables and the people who set up. And then there were people who brought china from home to set up the tables, and then they made centerpieces for each table. And someone made a beautiful bouquet on the altar and other flowers for this event. And I know I'm forgetting things. If you can, the people who sold tickets and then checked people in as they were coming in. Dolce Cantus came up and sang so beautifully for us, and all of the rehearsals that went into that. What am I forgetting? I know I must be forgetting something, but can you hear it? 1,000 people contributed, and thank you to each and every one of you. And then there were the people who bought tickets and invited other people and paid for extra tickets. I mean, you guys are wonderful. Let's do it again next week. Thank you so much.
So I have to get my mind in the right spot, because when you mentioned tip jars, I thought, okay, does that go to the servers or does that go to the church? So cancel. It goes to the church. No, and it was great to have that event, because 3 years it's been, and you could see the layer of dust on all the men's bow ties that have been sitting in the closet that we had to brush off. It was great to at least get our bow ties all spiffy. Living Fearlessly is our fall program that's starting this week, and it's not too late to sign up. There are sign-up sheets in the Great Hall. There are some that are in person. The groups that will be meeting in person, it will clearly say there. And if you're still wanting to distance, there are some offered through Zoom. So please sign up. It begins this week. It's going to be great. And there's a hand from Reverend Dalia, very subtle. Yes?
People are watching online. They can email the church to sign.
Okay. So very important for those of you listening at home that probably didn't hear that. If you're choosing to join via Zoom, you can sign up online. Good point, because you can't come into the church to sign up at the Great Hall to do Zoom. Email the church. Email Marcy. And then, as we do each and every year, except for the past 3, we're having a yard sale, and it's going to be Sunday, October 15th. It's going to be out in our parking lot, weather permitting. I don't know what we do if we have more blessings of rain from the sky, but October 15th, I don't think we've ever been rained out before. Why this announcement is important is we need some volunteers to help set up and also break down afterwards. So please, if you could, there's a sign-up sheet out in the hall, correct, Marcy, for the yard sale? And so you can sign up if you can volunteer. And also, we have the craft fair returning Saturday, November 12th. That's going to be here in our big social hall. It's always a pretty well-attended event. And what we need you to do is spread the word. If you're not a vendor, first, please come and bring your wares. But if you know people who are very gifted in that arena, please let them know that this event's happening so that they can sign up and bring their crafts. And then there's going to be a town hall meeting Sunday, October 2nd at 11:30 a.m. Where's the board people right there. The board has called this, the Reverend Dalia and the board have called this, and so we're going to have a town hall meeting, which we do from time to time to bring people up to date about the status of the church and anything to celebrate or any challenges that we may see, we can discuss as a congregation. And so with all those announcements, let's center ourselves and just remind ourselves why we're here. And we'd like to encapsulate that with this one simple yet powerful prayer. It's our statement of faith. If you repeat with me, there's only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, God the good.
When you're feeling lonely and tired of it all, remember a loving time. When you are just sure that you'll never stand tall, remember a loving time. When worries are visiting your house today, remember a loving you're having trouble just knowing your name, remember a loving time, 'cause you're okay this very minute. You just forgot how it feels. Remembering can touch the place where the love within is real. When doubt, fear, and anger are running the show, remember a loving time. When you have forgotten the peace that you know, remember a loving time. You know, it happens to all of us. We get in the hurry and scurry of the day and we forget expressing that love from within. But just by remembering a loving time in our lives, we can bring it back. It changes everything. We enliven it, return to our hearts. When hurry and scurry are part of your day, remember a loving time. Just know in each moment you're really okay. Remember a loving time. Remember a loving time. Namaste.
Good. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Thank you, Linda. That was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So I know that Paul did a great job letting everyone know about Fall Reflections, but I'm going to repeat the commercial, if you will. This is a fabulous opportunity. Everyone I've ever talked to about the fall program has told me that they've made such wonderful friendships, that they had good discussions, that it was a time in which they felt renewed and enthusiastic about their spiritual path. You know, there's something very precious about spiritual community. Mostly it's things like brownies and lemon cookies and laughter, maybe a little bit of gossip. Not that this community ever does that. But there's another level of spiritual community, and it's having a place or a circle or a group with whom you could talk about the questions that you hold in your heart, the questions about spirit and spiritual life, the questions and the ideas, the thoughts about the meaning of life and why we're here, the discussions about what do I do when it gets really tough, and I'm reacting as if I never heard of these teachings. How do I grab back hold of them? You cannot talk to people about this in line in the grocery store. And most gatherings that you go to, there's this sense if I start talking about this, they're going to look at me like I'm weird, right? But there is something very precious about having those conversations, about connecting with people on the level of spirit and sharing an intimacy about the issues in life that mean so much to us. That's one of the gifts. That's one of the very precious gifts of this Fall Reflections program. If you've never tried it, please do. If you're watching online and you're hesitating, it's 7 weeks. You're at a distance. You're safe. You can turn off your video and go get a cup of coffee if it gets too much. If you're local and you've been here, you know that you are in a loving group the moment you join in. It's a time for renewing, and we as a community need to renew. It's been a tough 3 years. It's been a tough 3 years, and coming back has been stops and starts. This pandemic virus, every time we thought we were going in a direction, pulled us back, and then this and that. So this renewal that this program offers is something that I believe our community is hungry for and could be tremendously blessed by. So, fall reflections. Please participate. If you cannot be part of a group, then every week you will be getting a handout with the questions that the groups will be discussing. And they'll be sent by email, and I think we have some to hand out after the service today. Okay, there's some out there right now. So, our time to reflect, and all year we've been talking about the mystery that leads us to the question of what is God and what am I? And what is the relationship between God and that which I am? And so living fearlessly, which is the theme of this fall program, goes right along with that. When I know what God is and what God is in my life, and when I know what I am, and when I know the way that power and presence that is God moves through me, expresses as me, when I know that I am one with that divine inner presence that I call God, when I know that, when I know it deeply and profoundly, there is nothing to fear. Even the very worst that life can throw at us cannot paralyze us with fear when we know that. I'm not saying we're never afraid for moments. Fear is adaptive. It teaches us to jump away from a rattlesnake, right? Or sometimes to put our brakes on in the freeway, and it's very good, and it helps us operate. But I'm talking about the fear that gnaws at us deeply, and we carry it with us, and it keeps us from sleeping. When we know what God is and what we are, and when we know the oneness that is the truth of our being, we no longer live in that state of fear. We no longer have that continuous heart pounding. We no longer find it hard to take a breath. Or you know that feeling deep in the pit of our stomach sometimes? There have been times in my life where I lived and breathed and walked with that pit in my stomach not letting up for days, for weeks, for months. We no longer need to ever do that. And that's what the theme of this program is this year. We are basing our weekly study discussions and the talks that I give on Sundays on a book by a man named Guy Finley. And the name of the book is The Essential Laws of Fearless Living, Finding the Power to Never Feel Powerless Again. And preliminary reviews that I'm getting from people who have read it is they really like it. It's getting good reviews, 5 stars. Guy Finley is the author, and he was born into a family of people who were fairly famous, and they were in the entertainment business. He, as a young man, started making a living as a musician. He performed, but that apparently wasn't his strength. His strength was as a composer. He composed music for movies, for TV shows, for entertainers like Diana Ross, and he did well. And, in his early adulthood, he was making good money. He was well known. He had the good life. But there was something inside of him that was like an emptiness, a hole in his being that kept growing and it hurt, and it made it hard to make it through the days. And everything in his life said his life was perfectish, right? And he still was aching inside. So he gave up the successful career, became a spiritual seeker, which included going to India and studying under masters there, learning something called self-realization, which is the process of coming to know who and what we are. And then he came back to the United States and studied under masters, spiritual masters in the West. And then he himself became an author. I tried to count his books and stopped at 15. So it's somewhere between 15 and 20, maybe more. He's a teacher, he's a speaker, workshop leader, and he is the founder of an organization called Life of Learning Foundation. And so he has a lot to offer. And he looks just like a man who used to be our music director named Mark Utermoser, doesn't he? Hope Mark is watching, maybe. Okay, so today I am talking about changing our altitude. And I've seen this advertised as change your attitude. You can do that too. But today we're talking about change your altitude. And this comes from a story in the first chapter of the book. And the story is about a woman named Rebecca. And she got degrees and she studied in college and she wanted to have a career in geological surveys. And she wanted to work in Alaska, and she thought that if I get a pilot's license, my career is going to have a much stronger pathway forward. So she hired a well-respected bush pilot and teacher to teach her how to fly. And she also had book learning to do around learning how to fly, and she was doing all of it. And they went up for the fourth time. It was her fourth flight. And up to this point, the bush pilot, her teacher, had done all of the flying. And as soon as they were up in the air, he looked over at her and said, "Okay, take over the controls." And she was ecstatic. I mean, she didn't know it was going to happen, this lesson. And she took the controls, and she's, in seventh heaven. She's flying the plane. The controls are in her hand, and she focused in on what was in front of her, and there was a big mountain. Kind of looked like that. And it was snow-covered, and she was heading right for it, and she froze. I mean, she froze. Have you ever had that experience where you got so scared you froze? And there's a biological mechanism that's fight, flight, or freeze. We're not alone as human beings in that reaction. When something scary happens, and she went into freeze. And meanwhile, as she's freezing, the plane is heading right into that mountain. And finally, she realized, I need to do something. So she looked over to her teacher and said, "Help, would you take over the controls?" And he very calmly said, "No, this is your flight." And she started going into a panic again and started freezing. And he saw that she was going into freeze mode again, and he waited for her to pull out of it, and she didn't. And he looked at her and said, "Change your altitude." And it hit her that she was holding the controls of the plane, and all she needed to do was pull back, and the plane would fly higher. And so she changed the altitude of the plane. They flew over the top of the mountain, and she had a successful first flight. And that's how it is in life sometimes. It looks like absolute disaster is going to happen, and sometimes on this earthly level, and a disaster does happen, but there's also the potential for the inner disaster of never pulling out of this fear of staying locked in it. So what we do is change our altitude. Sometimes it involves getting help. Sometimes we come to our senses on our own. I had an experience when I was about 17, 18 years old. I was learning how to drive a stick shift. I was a new driver, but I was elevating my abilities from an automatic to a stick shift. And I had a boyfriend at the time who was teaching me how to do this, and we spent a lot of time in empty parking lots and straight country roads in the middle of nowhere that had no inclines. And I finally got how to do this when I was on level ground. And for those who don't know, when you go uphill with a stick shift, it's particularly challenging because you can stall out or you can roll backwards, and it takes extra skill. But I was good on flat ground, and then he and I went and we found a few gentle hills, and I learned how to do that. And finally came a day, just like Rebecca with her bush pilot, that he says, okay, let's drive through the city. And we're driving along, and we took a route where there were no major hills, but there was a railroad track up ahead. And you know, sometimes you go up a slight hill to go up over the railroad tracks. Well, that's what was going on, and I was so focused on the clutch and the gas pedal and keeping everything balanced, and I get up over the tracks and the bells start clanging, and the gate behind me starts coming down, and I look over to the left, and I remember thinking, it's not supposed to be this close, and it's not supposed to be this big, the train coming at me. I mean, it looked like it was right there. So I froze. But unlike Rebecca, I mean, I think I was frozen solid. Apparently, I'm told that I had my foot solid on the brake, and I'm froze over the railroad tracks, and my boyfriend at the time apparently was telling me to take my foot off the brake. Nothing. No, I didn't, all I registered was it wasn't supposed to be so close, and it wasn't supposed to be so big. And apparently he had an adrenaline rush, jumped out of the car and pushed me over the tracks with my foot on the brake. I didn't even have it in me to ask for help, but that's also a metaphor, because sometimes when we're in what we feel is the worst possible thing in our lives, and we don't even have it in us to reach for those truth principles or to say help to the divine. Sometimes there's moments of grace where that divine help, that presence, that power, that infinite love is there for us despite ourselves. So I'm very grateful for that saving moment. But all of this is a metaphor for our lives, isn't it? Over and over and over again, we come up against something that scares us, that feels overwhelming. Sometimes it's just driving down the road and the policeman behind starts flashing those lights and the sirens, and or sometimes we get a horrible diagnosis, one that feels like too much, or financially there's what seems like a disaster, or a relationship seems to be slipping out of our hands. And it can feel like it's too much. And our goal and what we are meant to do in those moments is to change our altitude. Because no matter what the circumstances turn out to be, we can change our altitude in a way that we fly over that inner mountain. Then that part of us that wants us to freeze is released to be the truth of who we are. Guy Finley tells us in order to do that in our lives, we need to stop identifying with who you are not. You know, in those moments we often have self-talk that sounds like, you'll never be able to do this. That was so stupid that you got into this. Who are you that you think you can make it to the other side of this? I don't see it. I don't know how I will ever survive this. You know, that kind of self-talk is normal and totally not helpful. It is the self-talk that we need to rise above. It is that inner conversation that we need to release and reach for help. Reach for help, a prayer. Or reach for the truth. I am a child of God. I am greater than this challenge, or God in me is greater than this challenge. So we are to stop identifying with who we are not. In those moments, we need to remember that we don't have to believe everything we think. If our thoughts saying, I'll never make it through this, we don't have to believe that. There is something inside of people that assumes if a thought comes up automatically from within me, it has to be truth. Absolutely not. Back when I was a psychologist, we would work with those thoughts. Some of them are named automatic thoughts. Just because it comes up automatically doesn't make it true. Just because it repeats 24/7 for weeks on end does not make it true. We're also not to believe everything we feel. I'm not saying deny our feelings or to ignore them. They're very precious. You know, if we're frightened, that means that we need to respond to ourselves with compassion. Sometimes it means we need to reach out for help. Okay? But if I'm feeling hopeless, I don't have to believe that I'm hopeless, right? I just acknowledge that I'm feeling hopeless and that I need help. From God, from friends, from family, from my community, you know. If I'm feeling helpless, I don't have to believe that I'm helpless. It's a signal that I need to change some things to help me remember the power that lives within me. But we automatically believe that if I'm thinking it, I'm feeling it, then it's absolutely true. Before becoming a minister, I worked as a psychologist, and I would not have had any career because most of the work was looking at the feelings and thoughts that came up that were not true and replacing them with feelings and thoughts that were based in truth. So you might feel it, you might think it, and you might need to respond with compassion or strength, but you don't have to believe it. Right? Acknowledge it's there, but because I'm feeling helpless does not make it true. Okay? So stop identifying with thoughts and emotions that move through you. If you really pay attention, these thoughts are there for a few minutes, maybe a few hours, maybe a few weeks, but then they're gone. The same with that feeling of helplessness. It's there for a few minutes, an hour, a day, a week, but then it's gone. So these feelings and thoughts move through us, and sometimes we're called upon to work with them, but they move through us. They are not who we are. So Guy Finley reminds us to be watchful of passing thoughts. And I could add, be watchful of those passing emotions. But identify with that which is watching the thoughts. If I asked you for the next 5 seconds to watch the thoughts that arise, okay, just watch the thoughts that arise. Guy Finley's point, and the point of many spiritual masters, is you are the one that is watching those thoughts. You are the one that is focusing your attention on those thoughts. You are not those thoughts. Again, they might be something that you're called upon to work with, but the thoughts are not the truth of you. That presence within you that watches the thoughts is the truth of you. And that part of you that is watching the thoughts is that consciousness that is the ground of your true self, or the consciousness that knows its oneness with God. And Guy Finley tells us to seek out and stand on the unshakable ground of your true self. When we're standing on that ground and we're heading toward a mountain, we are much more capable of changing the altitude. When we're standing on that ground and we're facing a diagnosis that's scary, we are much more capable of moving through that, getting the help we need, doing the healing practices that we're called upon to do. When we are standing on the ground of a true self and there's a financial challenge that seems insurmountable, we are much better able to respond and grab onto divine ideas that open us to the abundance that is the truth of our being. If we think that we are those scary thoughts, then we better hope that there's someone there to push us over those railroad tracks, right? Because we do not bring the truth of who we are to the situation. And that's, again, there is help oftentimes, there is grace oftentimes, but what we are called upon is to stand on that ground of true self. There's a teacher in ancient India named Patanjali. He's known for a writing called the Yoga Sutras. And he wrote, "You discover yourself to be a greater person by far than you ever dreamed yourself to be." So when we learn how to stand on the ground of true self, we discover that we are absolutely amazing. We discover that we are the light of God's expressing. We discover that the power of God moves through us and that divine ideas inspire us and that there are infinite possibilities in every situation. Guy Finley wrote, "Be one with who you really are, and waves of 1,000 passing worlds cannot wash you away." No matter what those waves might be, they cannot wash away the truth of what we are. And the truth of what we are, according to Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew, he said, "You are the light of the world." You are the light of the world. Close your eyes just for a moment and see this amazing light pouring forth from the truth of who you are. That's who you are. And fear doesn't have a chance in the face of it. And so it is.
Be still and know that I am God. Be still, be still. In the silence, ever in the God I am. Be still, be still. Be ever in the silent now. Be still, be still. In the silence, ever in the God I am. Be still, be still, be still, be still, be still, be still.
And so now we go deeper into our time of meditation. I invite you to sit comfortably. Allow your breath to find its own easy and natural rhythm. And for a little while, simply focus your attention on the movement of your breath. Notice how your breath feels. And notice how your breath takes you deeper within, deep into that sacred space within you, that very still and spacious place within you. That still space where you know God, where in the stillness you feel the presence of God. Where you stand on the unshakable ground of your true self, and you know you are one with God. So in the silence, allow these words to be the words of your heart. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know. Be still. Be. In this moment, I know that I am one with God. In this moment, I stand on the unshakable ground of my true self. holding those affirmations in your heart, allow yourself to gently and easily bring your attention back to this room, back to this time and place. Take a nice deep breath. When you're ready, open your eyes. And then look around you and see the amazing light that is shining on each and every face. And know that that same light is shining as you right now. And then join with me in saying thank you. Thank you, God. Amen.
Be ever in the silent now. Be still, be still. In the silence, knowing only God, I am. Be still, be still, be still, be still, be still, be still.
In the before days, we used to have ushers that would line up here during this time of the service, and they would have these beautiful, what would you call them, velvet satchels, and we would pass them around, and that would be your love offering. But with COVID, we've had to change our altitude, and we have several different ways that you can give now. One is just to text to give. Who knew? Just do it through your phone. You can go to our website and click on that big orange donate button, make it very easy. But as I see somebody doing, we also have these beautiful baskets upon your exit where you can drop an old-fashioned piece of paper or liquid currency, as it's known to be. And so during the meditation, I was trying to figure out, what is that sound I keep hearing? I don't know if you heard it. What is that sound? And then I realized, oh, it's rain. I can hear the rain outside the door. So we know that abundance is everywhere. We just went through a week of 115-degree temperatures. It seemed so bleak and stark. And then suddenly, here it is. So let's bless the rain and bless our tithes and love offerings and bless each other with the blessings of our tithes and offerings. God's love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am and have, all that I give and receive. I am grateful. And we know that the inexhaustible resource is equal to every demand. There is no reality in lack. Rain is here and now manifest. And so now Linda Hogan's going to lead us in our peace song, and it's going to be wonderful, and we can all go out and get wet.
Why don't you just stand if you're able, and we'll just get this going. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, a peace that was meant to be with God our Creator. We are family. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow to each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. We are one holy family. We celebrate our oneness and honor our diversity. And join with me in our closing affirmation. The closing affirmation. There we go. I am the light of the world. One more time. I am the light of the world. And so it is. Now, during our postlude music, take time to greet each other, hug if it's appropriate, bow if it's appropriate, and just enjoy this beautiful community that we share.